Oh man, we have an RS7 in the Audi C7 owner's garage tonight. Shout out to TGK Motorsports for sending us their drop box. If you liked what you just saw in the beginning of the video, stay tuned because we're going to show you how to install this. It's probably maybe a 25-minute install, and if you have factory air ride suspension on your S6 or your RS7 or S7, you want this thing for about, I think it's 600 bucks? Yeah. 600 bucks with loaner links. I've got my friend Randy here with me tonight. This is his car. Say hi, Randy.
Wow.
And for that, you can have this box where you can just completely slam your factory OEM suspension. We don't have his lowering links yet. We're going to get those and we'll be able to go even lower. But tonight, we're going to show you how to install the TGK drop box. Please, if you haven't already, like and subscribe here on the channel. Find us on Instagram, please, at Audi C7 Owners, and give us some support there. But without further ado, we are going to jump into this install. Here's everything that comes in the TGK Dropbox box. You've got your directions, you've got 4 T-fittings, 2 remotes, your wiring harness, you've got your airline, and you've got the actual drop box here. It's got all your ports, got the connection for your power as well. One thing, when you order this, you need to make sure you have the size of your airlines for your car so that you can order the right airline size. There's either 6mm or 4mm, I think. These are 4mm lines, which match the RS7 we're working on tonight. It's rare to see a car with the bigger lines, but you do need to ensure that you've got the right size airlines or else you won't be able to complete this job. So when you get the box, grab the airline that's supplied, and you want to double check it with the car just to make sure before you start cutting or modifying anything. Before you start anything, you need to get your hatch open. If you have an S6, get your trunk open, and you want to get everything in here out. So we're going to remove the toolkit, we're going to remove that subwoofer just so that we have all the space we need to mount the box. The other thing is you want to make sure you open up that side compartment because you need access to your luggage or trunk fuse box. So go ahead and get all that open, and then after that we can start to find placement for the actual drop box. If you're unfamiliar with how to remove the actual toolkit, the first thing you need to do is remove the OEM Air Ride manifold. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Randy here, the guy that owns the car, is going to pull it out. It just kind of pulls up, and then you can kind of maneuver it out of the way. And then once it's up and out, you can start to pull the actual toolkit out around that. Just be careful not to yank it and catch into the airlines.
Just like that.
There we go. Then next, we're going to remove the subwoofer, and there's 2 bolts on top, and I'm gonna guess those are 10mm because everything's 10mm. There's a wire there, wiring harness that we need to disconnect. And is there a bolt at the bottom down there?
I think there might be.
Here, pull that carpet back. Let's take a look.
Yes, sir.
Yep, and another 10mm there. So hopefully once we get those 3 removed, we can pull that out pretty easily because it looks like there's gonna be some good space to put the drop box right underneath the subwoofer. Okay, so we need to figure out how to run our power cord in from the fuse box that's behind your cargo panel here and into the actual, what we call spare tire area, your maintenance area here, which is underneath your floor. So the best way to do it is to go in through where the luggage tie down is. This is held in by 2, I think it's T30 or 2 T35 torque screws. I've already got them out, so we can go ahead and pull that out of the way. It's off to the side. Then you can see it's open here, but what you don't know, if you haven't ever messed with this, behind this carpet, there's a hard plastic shell, and it's a pain. Like, you can't get anything in there. There's a hard plastic shell behind here. So in order to run this wire, because it's got a decent size plug on the end of it, we're gonna take a screwdriver and put it in here and just pull out. And when that happens, it gives you a lot of room there to be able to run that wire down and follow where the screwdriver is, and then you can grab it through the hole in the carpet and pull it all the way back through, and then we'll show you where we're gonna connect from there. Okay, so we got the wiring harness ran through. We ran, like I said, through this area with using the screwdriver to pull this out, and then I started to slide it back away from here because when I screw the luggage tie down back in, I don't want it to compress on the wire. Make sure you have it to where the fuse tap end is going into the fuse box area. And when you tap this in, make sure it goes underneath this bar. You want it all enclosed. Once you get it into the engine compartment, you can take this wire and run it into the engine compartment through any one of these holes in the carpet that you want to, so that it doesn't sit on top here. So just do that at your discretion, however you set this up. But we're gonna go ahead and kind of get this out of the way right now, and well, we actually might run it through here just to go ahead and do it, and we're going to put everything back into the car and actually start to put this together. Okay, so we've got the wires all connected. We have our fuse tab over here, and there's on the RS7 there's 3 boxes in a line. We're on the middle one, and there were 3 30-amp fuses, and we pulled the middle one out because that is the luggage compartment lighting, and as soon as we pulled it out, the lights went off, so we knew that was a constant power source. You have to decide if you want an ignition source or a power source, constant power source. We went with the constant power source so we could air the car out when the car isn't on. But in any case, we took the 30-amp fuse out, we put it in with the 10-amp fuse in the fuse tap, plugged it in there. Then we ran the ground to the battery, and you can see that right there. And Randy, if you will be so kind, do you have the remote? We're gonna do a test click before we mount all this stuff up. So when you press the button, you should hear a click. And there should also be a red light on your remote. You can hear that click, so we know it is working. So now we can start to tighten everything back up here, make it look really clean, put it together, and then we will work on installing the airline taps so that we can get this thing finished up. As we got to looking in here, we pulled all this stuff out. We pulled the subwoofer out to check everything and see how we wanted to mount this box. And in the S7, well, the RS7, unlike the S6, I guess, there's not really a great spot underneath all of this to actually mount it. So what we did when we got to looking here is this spot right here in the toolkit. There's this pump for airing up a tire if you need to, and it sits in here like this. We pulled that out just to get to looking at this spot, and we figured out that this is almost a perfect fit, and it is not going to interfere with the actual floor of the trunk space because that rests on these rails here, which is above this. But as you can see, this, when it comes to feeding these lines out, there's a little bit of foam here in the way, and then over here for the power connector, there's foam in the way here. So we are just going to mark these areas, and we're gonna trim them out. And we're gonna create some lines here for each airline. That way it's gonna have an OEM fit, and everything should be able to flow right over to the OEM airlines and not have to run any kind of crazy wiring, or I'm sorry, crazy airlines. On the back of the box, this port here, this is your air out line. So that means whenever your car's airing out, the air is escaping through this fitting here. You can run a line out of this and through the bottom of the car, and that way your air out line gives cool psh noises to the public, so you can air out on the peasants. We're not gonna run that line tonight just because we wanna make sure we have enough airline to run everything we need to. We are gonna go back and revisit this whenever we install the lowering links on this when we get those. All right, so we've got the box in place, and I mean, it looks perfect here. When we put the floor down, it's not, the floor isn't resting on the box at all because it rests over here on the edge. But let me show you guys what we did. Pull the box up, and you can see over here on the right, we cut a small channel out here for the wiring harness connection site here. And all I did was I took this X-Acto knife, and I just, well, obviously you can see where I put some Sharpie marks on each side of the actual plug. And then what I did was, once I got those marked in, I just took this X-Acto knife and I just went down a little bit on each side, and then I just took it in and I just put it into the foam and I brought it across. And I did little by little test fitting this on here until we got almost perfectly level with the box. And the good thing is we test fitted here. We don't have to cut out any channels into the foam here for the airlines. They go into here and they come right across the top without any pressure on them. The only concern I have with this is all that empty space underneath the box. While the floor doesn't put any pressure on it as is, if something does come over there and presses on, then you're pressing all the weights on that connector. So what we're gonna do just for the interim is I'm gonna get a piece of 2x4 and we're gonna cut it off and put it in here and get it nice and level with the shelf here, so that this is being supported flat across the entire space here instead of this supporting the weight on that side. Okay, so here's a quick look at how everything is set up. We're about to run the actual airlines from the box to the OEM airlines, but you can see that what we did here, I mean, it just looks perfectly clean. It's nice cut out. The power line goes down underneath. It's not stressed. So the next step here is probably the most stressful step, and that's cutting your OEM airline. So let's take a look here. You have this purple and brown airline. Those are 6mm airlines. You don't want to touch these at all. This is the airline that goes from your manifold to your tank and your pump to your manifold. So we're leaving those alone. We are going to be worrying about these right here. And these are your black, blue, red, and green lines. And what we're going to be doing, we're going to unhook it from here so we have some room to work with, and we're going to be cutting all 4 of these. When you cut these, you need to make sure that these cuts are as clean and perpendicular to the line as possible. You want perfectly flat surfaces, so when they go into the T-fittings, they mate all the way and they don't leak. If you cut them at an angle and they're not perfectly flush in the T-fittings, they could leak. A good way to test this, after you get the T-fittings on, if you're curious about a leak, you can spray some soapy water on it, And once the tank fills up with air, if there's any leak, it'll bubble up. So that's a little trick for anybody who isn't aware. But we are gonna go ahead and cut these. And when you do this, make sure your feet are not underneath the car. Make sure you have nothing underneath the car because the car is going to air all the way out. So when you cut the first one, it's gonna start going down. Make sure everything's clear from underneath the vehicle. And then we're gonna put the T-fittings on. We're gonna measure the distance between the manifold box from TGK to the T-fittings. We're gonna cut those. We're gonna put it all together, and then all we have to do is turn the car on, let it air back up, and give it a test. Feet away. Okay, pro tip. We cut it when we had the tool kit in here. You know, where the hell did that thing go?
Over there.
That thing. We had that still in the car and cut it, and that made it difficult because you only have this space to get in there. Pro tip, take it off, and then you have all this room to get in here, because you can see I didn't get perfectly perpendicular cuts. So I gotta go in here and just clean these up a little bit, and I'm gonna basically trim them to where they are perfectly even cuts, and then I'm gonna use a pair of needle nose pliers to make sure that the lines are completely opened up before we put the T-fittings on here. But we're gonna do that, put the T-fittings on here, then we'll put the toolkit and everything back in, and we'll run lines from the box over to the T-fittings, and then we should be done. Okay, so here's what it looks like with all the T-fittings connected to the wires that we cut. Get a little close up there. We went through, we made sure all the edges were perfectly cut flat. We used a pair of needle nose pliers to make sure none of them were crimped shut. And so now all we have to do is run the airline from these to the actual drop box. And it doesn't matter which one of these ports goes to which fitting, it'll all do the same job. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. All right, we've got everything connected. You can see our T-fittings here. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. We've got all of our 4mm airline connected to the actual drop box. TGK provides you with about 60 inches of airline, so we actually had plenty left over for our setup here, and yours might be different how you do this, but for our setup here, each one of these was a little over 7 inches long, maybe about 7 to 10 inches depending on how you run it. But like I said, we have plenty left over in case we messed up. But now it's time to turn the car on, and we're gonna let it air up. And I'll go ahead and back out and show you what the car looks like right now. It's completely dumped from us cutting those lines. It looks sick. Oh yeah. So we're gonna turn the car on, we're gonna check for leaks, and other than that, we should be done. So let's see how we did. You guys can probably hear the air tank filling up. I don't hear any leaks, so it looks like we did a good job here. Okay, so this is how you use the drop box. This isn't like a traditional air ride system where you can set a preset height and air it up, air it down at your whim. Right now the car is aired up to the factory height that the driver has it for whatever mode. You know, this changes whether it's in regular drive or sport, things like that. But you have your remote, and what happens is you press the button, and as long as you're pressing the button, it's gonna air out. So right now I'm gonna press and hold it. You can hear it airing out. Now if I let go of the button, it stops. So if you want to air it all the way out, you've got to just hold it until it completely airs out all the way. And that is completely aired out. Now, for those of you that might be new to bagged cars, when you get in and start this car, it's not gonna immediately rise up to your ride height where you can immediately start driving. You have to give yourself some time to let the car air up before you can drive. Your car will show a too low fault, a air ride too low fault, and I should have a picture of that for you so you know what it looks like. And probably a good just key to know when you can start to drive is when that fault goes away on your dash. So be very careful about that when you first start driving your car where you've got it fully bagged out like this. Okay, so something to be aware just with us playing around for this for a little bit. It takes a little while to air back up to a drivable stance. You know, this system in here, it's small airlines, it's a small air tank, it's a compressor that's not putting out a ton of air, a ton of pressure. So do not drive off until this thing is fully aired up, including the fronts. What it does for this car, at least, is the rear actually comes up pretty quick, but then you have to wait for the pump to refill the tank again and then fill up the front. It took probably about 1.5 minutes to fill up the entire thing, maybe almost 2 minutes after letting it do the whole air up procedure. So this isn't something where you're gonna be airing out at the gas station and then driving off immediately. This is definitely for hard parking at a car show, or something that you plan on leaving the car there for a little bit where you're not in a rush to get in the car and leave. So please, once again, do not air this thing out and then jump into it and try and drive as soon as you turn the car on, because you're gonna have a bad day. Okay, so we were buttoning up the car, and as we were getting everything back together, we realized that we had this cover to put back in for the RS7. It's supposed to go in the car like this, and that won't work because the box is there now, and that little vent piece, whatever reason it's there, hits it. So we were a little worried. We were thinking about cutting that off, but then we had the idea of just flipping this thing around. And you flip this around, and it still tightens on there. It still sits nice and flush. The other thing is the edge of this cover, and you can kind of see we put some foam in there because there's a little space between this and the edge of this, but this cover hits this, and I mean, that's in there nice and secure. So that goes on there, the floor goes down, and we're good to go. All right, guys, thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions about this, just drop them in the comments below, as always. The link for everything that you saw here tonight will be in the description, so check it out. Make sure you go on Instagram and Facebook and follow TGK. He hooked us up with this kit tonight. Thank you so much to Tyler for that. You rock. Cannot wait to get the lowering links and really slam this. Hey guys, real quick, I got some specific information on the lowering links from Tyler at TGK that I wanted to make sure I got into this video. The lowering links don't actually lower your car any more than what it can do when you air it out with the dump box. What the lowering links do once you've installed is it adjusts your ride height when the car airs back up. So instead of airing all the way back up to an OEM ride height, which takes like 1.5 minutes or so, this will take about 20 to 30 seconds to air up to a lowered ride height. So keep that in mind. We're gonna have a detailed DIY video on installing those on this RS7 that you're watching in this video, so look forward to that here in the next few weeks. Additionally, the box that you're seeing us install tonight is a 3D printed box. That's his first version basically that he was doing, but he actually just got a brand new order of some really nice aluminum boxes, and you can see them somewhere over here. Hopefully I've got it set up, but they're really, really cool looking. He's sending us one so that we can get a detailed look at it, so we can swap it out on this RS7, make sure we have a nice looking box. Same exact dimensions as the 3D printed one, so no major change in height or anything like that. Reference how you've got yours installed. It should just be a direct swap if you ever get one. Other than that, as far as the lowered height of what your car is when you slam it using the dump box, that's as low as you're gonna get unless you cut out the rear bump stops in your rear suspension, and then your rears will go down a little bit lower. And then Tyler also said he's working on some new suspension components up front that'll bring the front down a little bit lower. So that's some exciting things to look forward to coming from TGK Motorsport in the near future. Back to the video. Super stoked to get those in and get these on the car. But once again, guys, thank you for the support. We'll see you guys on the next video.